kind of elements going forward. So I'm actually ecstatic to see this type of turnout. We were anticipating probably 80 people here, and we were able, we viewed the place, and the bottom line is this is tremendous. I feel so happy about this, and I thank you. Now, normally we say please rise, but most of you are already out of a chair, but we're going to say we're going to say the Pledge of Allegiance, okay? Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just a couple of brief announcements. Any elected officials in the crowd? Any representatives of elected officials in the crowd? Any staffers of elected officials in the crowd?
Too cold for them.
Anyone that works for or elected official or an official New York City agency? Any members of the press, aside from what I see here from News 12? Any Confederates or spies that are going to be reporting back to the elected officials on this meeting?
They should show up.
Okay. Now, a reminder, please, be mindful of what you say in the crowd. In the past, it has been my experience that sometimes innocent words have been maneuvered and weaponized, we'll say, against the community. So please be mindful of your words. Now, let me explain, because people are familiar with my good friend John Serini and the Bronx Coalition Against Upzoning. The Community Coalition for Common Sense is a mindset and a movement. That's what we are. We are not inhibited or restricted by the Johnson Amendment, which restricts certain things on 501c3 organizations. We can travel in lanes and disseminate information that they can't. But because we have that leeway, we still have a responsibility to do things legally and ethically. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, on the heels of that, we do strongly encourage that financial support continue, magnanimous financial support continue to the Bronx Coalition Against Upzoning, because together we have a battle. This is going to be a battle, and it's going to cost some money. We're going to have some multiple speakers tonight, but I'm just going to start off. And I'm going to do a little Sesame Street with you. We're going to focus on the letter today. Is going to be the letter W. The letter W. We're going to play some Sesame Street. We're going to go back to our PBS days. We're going to start with the letter W and meaning war. War in the sense of this: across the state, actually across the nation, there is a war on low-density zoning. If you think this is restricted to here, it's incorrect. People have reached out to me from as far as Saratoga, New York. They actually have a group out there called Sustainable Saratoga that ended up purchasing hundreds of acres of farmland to stop overdevelopment in Saratoga. Okay? So, and this is going on across the nation, it's not just here. Okay, so the bottom line is, when we look at the war going on, and we know it's a pretty vast war, in New York State we know this. Every level of government has shown some distaste for low-density zoning. So we have to know what we're up against. We have Governor Hochul, okay? January's budget came out. There was language in there that was, we'll say, against some low-density zoning regulations, but luckily it was caught and it was removed. Now we know at the state level, Senator Biaggi and our Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has not been proponents of low-density communities. That we know. At the city council level, we know that Open New York, a group that favors developers and various types of housing, and is against low density zoning, supports at least 18 members of the city council, including our councilwoman in CD 13, Marjorie Velasquez. So that has to be brought out. All right? So it is clear right now that the agendas, from what I could tell, and I've done a lot of homework and research on this over the last actually 2.5 years, the goal is actually the eradication of the low density community. Now you have to understand, this isn't the thing where someone's going to come out and get a wrecking ball and just destroy your house and build something tall. It's going to take time. This is going to be over a period of years and years, but you're going to see profound change in certain segments of the community. That is just how it works. Now, the bottom line is we're still going to be in the Sesame Street mode, and we're going to still focus on the letter W. Let's focus on the what. What happened here? What happened? How did this happen? All these parcels of land that we know that are involved in the Bruckner upzoning, we know what the developer claimed to be a good neighbor. He's a good guy. He's going to do all this for the community. He's going to put in this and that and a rec center and all this other stuff. But let's be honest. Would a good neighbor go behind the community's back in September of 2020 rather, put in an application to upzone our community, not tell anyone, even though city planning, you have to understand this, it's legal, which is another conversation. City planning recommends the community be notified expeditiously. That is the recommendation of city planning. So despite that recommendation, the developers, the good guys, notified the community 10 months later, July 2021. During the height of a pandemic, everything was shut down. Civics weren't meeting. Things were on Zoom. Community boards weren't working at their fast pace. The bottom line, they were working quick while our hands were tied. Those are good guys. Not in my world, they're not good guys. Now, we're going to focus on the what. The what. What is the what? The what is simply our community is against losing our low density zoning area. Our low density growth management area is important to us. And we don't want to lose it. That is the what. The who that is always focused on is a non-issue. Anything built as of right, whoever decides to live there, they are welcome into our community. This is a what issue, not a who issue, and that must be pounded home. Pounded home. Because the tables that are being turned, the tide that's being brought in that has the racial overtones must cease now. I was at the forefront of this. My name is on the original petition that started this on the change.org. And I would not have my good name affiliated with anything that is racist. And I'm making that clear. And I'll make it doubly clear. Because that is not my game. And anything affiliated with that type of discriminatory behavior, I would not be affiliated with. Now, going forward, we know this. We're going to go to a letter now. We'll go play a little Sesame Street. We'll go to letter D. And we're going to talk about diversity. In the beginning, there was a lot of claims by certain factions, groups, elected officials, etc., that our communities did not have diversity. They didn't like what they see. I'm from the Spencer Estate community, and I can tell you this, my community is very diverse. We have gone through an organic change over the last 10 to 15 years, and it's actually been a pleasant change. things that change organically, naturally, are sustainable. They're sustainable, they're more palatable, and they work. And our communities are going like that. And any other type of narrative is totally disingenuous. I mean, I could look at my particular street as a microcosm. On my particular street, I live in a low-density community. As a white male, I am now in the minority. And that's the truth. But you know what? I have quality neighbors. And this is what I say. Quality comes in all shapes, colors, sizes. It don't matter. I wrote an essay some years ago, and it was about a life lesson that my grandmother taught me. She actually took me to the dump, because back in 1963, I don't want to give my age away too much, we didn't have bulk pickup. You had bulk pickup, you had to drive your car up to the landfill by Pelham Bay and drop your stuff off. And one day she asked me, she said, "What do you see here?" And I said, "What do you mean, what do I see? I'm a kid. I see garbage." She was like, "No, I want to know what you see." And I wasn't getting it. My brain wasn't developed enough to get where she was going. And on the bumpy car ride home, she was explaining to me that, you see a lot of trash. And notice how the trash is all different shapes, colors, and sizes. And she said, remember that in the real world. People, good people, come in all shapes, colors, and sizes, and so do the bad. Do not judge anyone on their looks. Ever. So I want to make it clear what this upzoning opposition is about. And I've been baited a couple of times, or attempted to be baited, and I refuse to be. They want to say this is a protest. And I say, no, it's not a protest. Because a protest has a negative connotation. This is a rally. It's a rally to protect a way of life, the low-density lifestyle. We have people in my neighborhood, young people, Spanish, Black, Asian, that have just bought into our community. And now we're going to pull the rug out on them after they invested emotionally and financially in a now diverse community by changing zoning? No. No. That cannot be allowed. And in closing, I want to thank all of you for coming here tonight. And I'm going to hand the microphone off to my good friend, John Serini, who's had a few things to say. God bless you all. And remember one thing. We lose our zoning, you know what happens. We lose our community. That's the bottom line. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Hey everybody, thanks so much for coming out. It's cold and I know my eyes are tearing, and it's not because I'm crying of happiness or anything, but it's amazing how our community has come together piece by piece, slowly, but we are standing here together for the common cause to keep our community just as we love it. And there's nothing wrong with that, and I applaud you guys, and I want you to be proud of what you're doing here today. So, a little bit about me. I was born and raised in Throggs Neck. I attended all the local public schools in Throggs Neck. My parents were immigrants. They came from another section of the Bronx, in the South Bronx. They came from there. And why did they come to Throggs Neck? I mean, you know how sometimes people say fate? You know, what was the odds that my parents were going to come from another country, meet in the Bronx, and then move to Throggs Neck, a place which I called home my entire life now? And they bought a house in Throggs Neck because it was and still is a beautiful neighborhood. This is the neighborhood we want. This is the neighborhood we love. Why do we need these contractors to try to come in here and tell us that what they're giving us is good for us? By a show of hands, and I asked this at the church, I don't know how many people came. By a show of hands, how many people here or know people that were affected by Ida on September 1st? How many people had floods in your basement, or your neighbors? You had problems with your roofs leaking, and there was no way that the city was giving us the infrastructure we needed. Now, I don't know how in the world the city elected officials, the DEP, or any of these contractors, developers, or realtors, or anybody that's trying to tell us that this thing is good for us can possibly tell us that the infrastructure is going to be good with these buildings. We're talking about 34 potential sites. Right now, only 4 sites have been designed, but 34 potential sites. Now, have you guys seen the renderings? They go from the corner of Bruckner and Crosby all the way down to Bruckner and Gifford. We're talking about potentially thousands and thousands of additional units coming into our community. We're talking about 8-story buildings from Bruckner and Crosby all the way down to Gifford. Now, not every building might be 8 stories. Some of them have been scaled to 5 stories. Some of them have been scaled to 3 stories. But no matter what, we're going to have eyesores in the neighborhood blocking the, like if you're across on the other side by St. Benedict's Church, the shadows that they have shown in renderings are going to engulf St. Benedict's Church. We're just going to have a different lifestyle. Our sewage can't handle it. Our police department is already short-staffed. Parking is at an all-time low. I mean, every household probably has a couple of cars. You can't even park your car in front of your house anymore. We have schools that have crowded classrooms. My children, all 4, went to PS 71, and there was times when the cafeteria could not house all the children in our school. So you'd think, well, they just built out PS 14 a little bit. Well, that's a good thing. The community can handle another 1,100 families. That's not true. We can't handle these families.
It didn't help. My granddaughter can't even get into an after-school program. She was in a lottery and didn't make the lottery.
It didn't help because he's saying his granddaughter couldn't get into the after-school program. So even with the extra space that they built, it's still not good enough. Why do we need to allow them to crush us in our community? In 2005, Jimmy Vacca helped us to downzone our community, and I applaud him for that. Who would have thought that now, all these years later, they're trying to upzone us and bring us to these big buildings? And if you think that the buildings aren't coming to your back door, and I know that you guys don't think that because you're here today, but for the people watching, please, if you think that it's not coming to your back door, if you live in this section of the Bronx, think again. Because it's going to be, as of right, where when they build these buildings, they're going to be dominoing one at a time. The developers are never going to stop. It's going to be a field day for them. Once they build one, they're going to try knocking on the house next door and say, hey, we'll give you so much for your house. Will you be willing to get out? And let's face the facts. Do you want to buy a home next to these monstrosities of buildings? No. So people are probably going to start to run from the community. And we don't want that. I don't want anybody in this neighborhood to move. Please don't move. Please stay in the community. We have to fight for our community. But they're trying to tell us that the property values are going to go up. Does anybody here think that your property value is actually going to go up with a gigantic building next door to you?
No.
No. Look what happened where? Yeah, there's houses, you guys have probably seen this. I mean, I don't want to give people's names, but there's houses that they built a building on both sides of the house. They closed off the people's windows. They have no more air. They have no more sunlight. I mean, when we bought our homes, I grew up in this neighborhood. Then when I got married, I wanted to live in the neighborhood, so I bought a home. When we bought our homes, we want a backyard with privacy. We can have a barbecue with our family. We don't want to look up and see everybody staring down at us. I mean, it's ridiculous to think that they're trying to give us this web of lies that they're saying this is a good thing. Well, you know, if you were at the St. Benedict's meeting, they said that the great thing is that after this, the new building comes where the food town is, there's going to be 85 jobs being offered. But those are the same 85 jobs they're firing people so that those people have to go out and get unemployment or find another job temporarily for a couple of years while they build these buildings. So here I am today, and I'm telling you that I have a lot of enthusiasm about this because I love my neighborhood. I have nothing to gain other than keeping my community beautiful. And I want to be your voice so you guys can reach out to me. You can reach out to George. You can reach out to Michelle. You can reach out to Andrew and the homeowners associations, because every single homeowner association in this neighborhood backs us. As far as I know, we have the Throggs Neck. We have Waterbury LaSalle, we have Spencer Estates, we have all the homeowners associations backing us because this is something nobody wants, right? But, can anybody just raise your hand? If you don't want this, raise your hand. Yes, thank you. We need to let our voices be heard. I want you guys to call your city councilwoman. Her phone number is 718-988-8888. 931-1721. Google it after you leave here. Call her and tell her you don't want this. Now, at the last meeting, she said to us, she knows what we don't want, but she wants to know what we do want. And I want you to give her this answer, because she's looking for you to give the answer, to tell the contractors what it is that she should tell them. It's not your job, it's not my job to tell the contractors what it is that we want, because we're not willing to negotiate. There's no negotiation here. We're not saying, oh, you want to go 8, we'll take 6. No, we're not. You want to go 8, we'll take 5? No. You want to go 8, we'll take 3? Absolutely not. What we want is we want our zoning to stay the way it is. So what does that mean? That the contractors can build 1 and 2 family homes up to 35 feet. That's what you tell your councilwoman. When she says, what do you want me to tell the contractors? You tell these contractors that if they want to line their pockets with money, build 1 and 2 family homes. That's what you're legally allowed to do. That's all we're allowing you to do. We will fight you to a blue in the face. We will go to City Hall. We will get busloads of people, and we will continue to fight. That's what we got to tell them. Thank you, everybody. God bless you. 718-931-1721.
Yes, the councilwoman's number, the council person's number doesn't change. It has been the same for a long time. You want to write it down, 718-931-1721.
Have her email?
Text me that number.
Now, next I'd like to bring up Debbie Roth. 718.
So there are people cleaning the streets in our community. There are people that fight for the rights of the people in our community. And these people are volunteers. What we can all do to help these volunteers, and it's the least we can all do to help these volunteers, is write emails, make phone calls, and not only call Marjorie Velasquez, call Michael Benedetto, the only person who stands up and says that he will not support this movement. Call Senator Biaggi's office. Call them all. We have to make a change in the people that are supposed to be representing us. We're not being represented in the Bronx. We're being denied any resiliency projects. We had to fight for everything that we were promised to get in Edgewater. And fortunately, by staying active and staying on top of the people who made promises, we're demanding that they follow through. So the least everyone here can do to support the actions of the volunteers in our community, and there are many, you have to at least make a call and write an email. This is all great being here. Send John Serini a check. Let's all make sure that everyone hears what we do not want and what we want in our community, because we are not being served in the Bronx. Thank you.
Yay!
Thank you, Debbie. Now we're going to go to the other side of the Bronx. We have somebody here from Van Nest, a very dear friend of mine, Bernadette Ferrara. She's going to say a few words. And this is the deal. I mean, you know, we're reaching out all over, far and wide. We want to get all the communities involved. Because the bottom line is this, you know, community is nothing but common unity. That's what it is. And Bernadette, come right up here. Thank you, Bernadette.
For those who don't know me, my name is Bernadette Ferrara. I'm the co-founder and president of the Van Ness Neighborhood Alliance, and I've born, raised, and lived in the Van Ness neighborhood my whole life, and I'm not going anywhere. I'm also on Community Board 11, and I've been serving on that since 2008. Why am I here tonight? I see the need for the communities to unite and push back against the overdevelopment in all our low-density neighborhoods. What happens in Throggs Neck will happen in Van Ness, Morris Park, Allerton, Waterbury LaSalle, Country Club, Spencer Estates. Yes, it is true. It is a real David and Goliath scenario. Overdevelopment is in place to destabilize our low-density communities by the policies of radical socialists and social justice warriors who make up the majority of our city council and state legislature. If you don't want to lose your communities that we have worked so hard to keep stable and safe, then we cannot allow this upzoning. Look at our current public safety in our communities. We all attend our monthly police city council meetings and get the 28-date comp stats. The radical left and their policies have created a revolving door and an atmosphere of lawlessness reaching crisis proportions. Our power is in our vote. When you go to vote, ignore your ranked choice voting and your party affiliation. When you go to vote, make sure your candidates want to fund the police and support broken windows policies. And make sure they're interested in real justice, not just social justice. But above all, everybody's got to go out and vote. If you don't, if you stay complacent, you become part of the problem and not part of the solution. Our communities belong to us, law-abiding, tax-paying citizens. And they do not belong to the overdevelopers that try to sell their benefits wrapped in a big bow. There is strength in numbers, and our communities must stay united. That's why I'm here, and that's why I'm here to say, let's take back our neighborhoods, and let's take back our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernadette. It was interesting, when you listen to some of Bernadette's words, she brought up sort of something biblical. David and Goliath. Guess who Goliath is?
You.
Not me. And guess who David is? Now, David slayed the big, massive, giant owl with his little slingshot full of rocks. Our slingshot is our councilwoman. And the little rocks are the members that she needs to get deference. With the council members and our councilwoman, if she so chooses, and we know she's capable of doing it, if she wants it, it will be done, because there's one way that this gets firmly extinguished. It's through something little known as council person deference, which enables the area or district council person their will. They don't want it, the council says, we side with you. Now, if she doesn't do anything to invoke that or establish that, we have a problem. Okay? So, be known that there is a way our council member can get the support in council needed to just wipe this thing right out. And if she don't want to do it, it's because she's not on our side. That's the bottom line. There's a way, and just remember, council person deference. David and Goliath, the sling. Council person deference. Now it's my pleasure to bring up a very good friend, a valued friend from the Pelham Bay Taxpayers, Waterbury, LaSalle, the 45th Precinct Council, certified. What else you got going on? Michelle Torioni.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to make it quick. I just want to follow after what John Serini had said. I'm a longtime resident of Pelham Bay. My mom still lives there. She's going to be 91 in September. Don't tell her if you ever saw her that I told you how old she's going to be. She'll hate me. Anyway, unfortunately, unlike the low-density area, Pelham Bay has been hit and will be continued to be hit just because of our zoning. So this is why it's important that you fight to keep this zoning in this community. This is not an as of right. This is they need to change the zoning to build up. In Pelham Bay, that is not the same thing. They built a big story. They came and they wanted to build on Westchester Avenue down the end of Wilkinson. They came, they met with the community. They said they wanted to do 13 stories. We sat down with them and they had as of right to do it. We sat down with them and they said, well, you're complaining, so we'll only do 7. Thank you. Big deal. We don't want that. It's still empty, not full. Now they want to build next door to that 17 stories, and they can do that as of right. Pruzo's, Pilgrim, the carpet store, that building is up for sale. R7, they can go high there too. They're building over there, they're putting in sewers, large sewer lines, because they know they're going to go up in the zone there because they can, because that is as of right. And what happens is the people sell their homes because, like George said and everybody else said, you don't want to live next to these large apartment buildings because you came here to have your own home, one family, two family, because you thought it was cute and quaint here. You had the buildings every here and there, but you don't want to live on top of these buildings. So people are selling. 1616 Crosby Avenue was a nice three-family Victorian home. The people sold it. They're going to put 31 families on that lot. It was a three-family home. 31 families will go on that lot because it's as of right. This development is not the same. They cannot come to you and say, what do you want? We'll only build 7 instead of 8. They can't do that because they have to change the zoning. It's not the same as of right. We want them to build to code to what it is zoned there. They can build. They've been holding on to these properties. If you don't think this is about money, you're crazy. It is totally about money. So listen, this is great. We came out, we're all freezing, and we got to stay together. There is power in numbers. You have to call Marjorie. You have to tell her everything that George says. You want her to vote no. You don't want to tell her what they want to develop. You want them to develop to code. That's it. Period. End of story. Thank you.
Give her email.
Thank you, Michelle.
You might answer the phone.
Oh, well, that's the thing. Well, I don't want to get too deep into that, but the clock has started at city planning, and if you look at the flow chart on these type of things, there is a maximum of 150 days on this. So, it could be, who knows, how quick it is. I know, I can only speak right now. I know the community board has said that we're going to take pretty close to the full 60 days that they have. And not to get too far ahead, there's going to be a public hearing where people are going to be able to speak. On the 19th of May, the place has to be determined by the Community Board 10, and I don't want to say too much because that is beyond my purview right now. Now next, I'd like to bring up another valued friend, Andrew Chirico from the Waterbury LaSalle Civic. And they're kind of ground zero for this, and that's the deal. We got to really support these guys, and the bottom line is, if it happens there, it can happen here. And the one question I would put forth is this: can you show me one low-density community that's been developed or overdeveloped that has an improved quality of life? That's the question that I ask. Show me where this type of development has brought better quality of life to the community. That's the question you got to ask. Andrew, it's all yours. Thank you.
I wasn't really prepared tonight. But at the other meeting at the church, I talked about the history of this and how VACA got the city council and the mayor to give us the lower density. So now that we have the lower density, after that we got more parking. Parking was added. Now, in the low density, the R3A, you have 150% parking. If this zoning should change, as the zoning numbers get higher, they take parking away from you. In the R5 and R6, you have to have 50% parking. And if you're too close to transportation, they can waive off the parking and you get a building with no parking. Now, the projection that they're showing us, they're showing something like 20 parking spaces for the supermarket and 18 parking spaces for a 5-story building. It doesn't make sense. The city and the way they appropriate parking in the higher zones is antiquated, it's backwards, it doesn't follow our times. Everybody has a car. They tried to tell us at meetings that if you're in the transportation zone and you're near a bus, the people in this building won't have cars. No. The people in this building may take a train to go to work, but during the day, they still have a car. It's got to be parked somewhere. And if they don't provide it in the larger zones, it's going to be in your driveway and somebody else's driveway, and it's going to be in front of a hydrant. It's completely backwards. But what we're fighting for is we don't even want to talk about this. We want the zoning that we have to stay the way it is. If the builder wants to build, let them build within that zoning. Again, that means 1 or 2 family detached houses. And those houses have to have 3 off-street parking spaces. If you go any larger than that, you lose your neighborhood, you lose your parking. And right now, if you try to drive on Bruckner or Crosby or Tremont, any time of the day, you're in traffic. You're stuck, you're at lights, you're waiting for another light, you can't get through. When the school picks up and drops off their kids, Crosby Avenue is double parked on both sides of the street. The fire trucks can't get through. When they have to move, they end up going to Tremont or going around because they can't get through. People won't even move the cars for a fire truck. So we have to all stick together. And when you call your councilwoman, like everyone has been saying, we want to stick within the zoning. We're very happy the way the zoning is. Build within the present zoning codes that we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Something very important to know that there is something that is, by definition, I guess they call it a transit corridor, transit zone. Now, the transit corridor, transit zone is important for this aspect. Depending on the type of housing and the distance from a subway, for example, 1/4 of a mile from a subway, with true affordable housing or senior housing, the developer has to put in 0 parking. 0. Now, the distance and scope of the housing of the AMI, if it's MIH, that's a different story. I mean, but the parking that is mandated for the developer is very, very limited. And the transit corridor is going to be redefined, there's no doubt about it, or there's going to be subtext to it, because now they're going to include not only the subway, it's going to be multiple bus lines, which we heard at the city planning hearing. They said this community is well served by 2 buses. So that's how it works. You know, they do it to fit the narrative. And also, let's not forget the micro transportation. There's nothing like taking your kid to daycare on a scooter and then jumping on a bus. So that's how it works. I mean, that's how it's going to be going. Now, I'd like to bring up somebody, and don't boo him. He's a realtor. Don't boo him. He's a good guy. Greg from Keller Williams. Come on up, Greg. It's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, everyone. As a realtor, I see a lot of things out there, so I'm going to give you a little bit of a different perspective. But I'm going to start with an article that was written in Forbes that said by 2030, owners really won't have rights in America, which is kind of an... There was an article in Forbes some time ago that said by the year 2030, their prediction was that here in America, land ownership rights will be basically eliminated through excessive taxation and over-regulation. All right, now, if you look at the laws they're trying to pass, it's something everyone should hear about. It's called real estate tax equality. You could Google it yourself. But it looks like they discovered that 1 and 2 family homeowners don't pay their fair share of taxes here in New York City. No, this is serious. All right, you could do all the Googling yourself. They want to basically make it fair market value like it is in Westchester. But you know what? We're the services for the Westchester services that we have here. You know, that's a very big issue. You know, so that's one thing that everyone should research. Look it up on the website. There's a lot of things going on in terms of our taxation and who they think is not paying their fair share. And guess what? It's you. In terms of regulation, people got to understand that if you own a building that's 6 and up, you have rent stabilization laws. The government tells you what your rent is. Even I think inside the lease, even though I'm not a lawyer, some of the language says that they can even go back in time and be retroactive. You got too much rent, therefore you got to give it back. All right, these are things that I read in the contract. I'm not a lawyer, so you could check it out yourself. I'm sure there's some lawyers out there who know more about the contracts than me. But 6 and up, your rents are controlled if you have a building, unless it's super high end. You know, you're wealthy. It doesn't apply to you really. You know, you're paying $5,000, $10,000 a month in Manhattan. You could be as far left as you want. It really won't affect you. If you go to 5 and under, now they have something called income discrimination. Has anyone ever heard of that before? Okay, that basically means that, you know, if someone comes to you, and there are some stipulations based on the size of the house and the square footage, and if a realtor is involved, but basically, if they say that, you know, someone comes to you and they say that, well, I have a voucher, I have a Section 8, I have a City FEPS, I have a FEPS, I have a SODA, I have a HASA, and there's a whole litany of things that we as realtors have to learn and have to be very careful about because we can't discriminate. What is a type of discrimination? Basically saying to someone that if you come to me and you say, I want to rent your apartment, and I say, I'm sorry, I don't want to deal with the government, then you basically can get sued and you can get into trouble. And I as a realtor can lose my license. So, you know, we have to abide by the law. The law is the law. But what happens when you take a voucher? Now the government is in control of your rent, because the renters pay a certain amount. So 6 and up is rent control. 5 and under, if you have a voucher, to this point, you know, it is illegal to take more than what the voucher is. Even the caseworker will tell you, just pay the difference. No, you can't pay the difference, because when the judge finds out that you're taking advantage of a person on a voucher, then they give you treble damages or some crazy penalties on top of that. So now they want to pass another law called good cause eviction, which basically means tenancy for life. So now it's the burden on the landlord in order to basically say that I have a good reason to evict the tenant. You know, so now it's like the noose is around land ownership's necks, because if they pass good cause eviction, then basically, you know, it's, I don't know what your rights are as a landlord. All right, so these are laws that we need to really think about. And you know, when we go to the voting booth, there's two words I heard here tonight. One was deference. You know, there was some call I went on. They were talking about deference, and they want to get rid of it. So if the councilman who represents the area that's voted by the people wants to do something, all right, I believe now there's still this term called deference, where you could say, back off, this is my neighborhood, my people put me in power, I want this. They want to get rid of that, which basically is, once you have a majority, now you have mob rule. So they want mob rule. What does that mean? It means that, you know, you throw enough money around, you get what you want, now you're in control of the mob. I'll tell you what to do in your own neighborhood. You're a council person, you're a assembly person, whoever it is. I mean, you know, these are things that I hear on these calls, and I'm like, you know, in the olden days I heard some elected officials saying that this is my neighborhood, I'll do as my people please, or this is what needs to get done. All right, and another thing that I want to make clear, because I could talk forever, I don't want to bore you guys, all right, but basically this is this whole movement was started by this ideology that if you own a one-family house, this is the rhetoric, that you are a resource hoarder. This is what they're saying, that you who have a one-family house are a resource hoarder. I'll be quick. All right, you know, basically this is something that came out of, you know, Soviet-era talks, because who were the kulaks? The kulaks are the ones that had the tight fist. We're going to teach them how to open up our hands and share. So think about that. All right, so there's an organization called Ghibli, Yes in My Backyard. It's funded by billionaires. All right, and they're coming up with these ideas telling you that you're a resource hoarder. So you really need to think about these things when you go to the voting booths. So that's my 2 pieces. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Now, there's something that he mentioned about deference. One thing you got to remember, a city council person gets deference for one reason. They are not a citywide office. Okay? So they do not have to, according to campaign finance, they do not have to participate in mandatory debates, but yet they still get the 8-to-1 matching funds from your tax dollars. So whether you directly fund somebody, you indirectly fund somebody no matter where they are in the city council. So in essence, a $10 donation actually becomes $90 because of your tax dollars. So that's the bottom line. So city council deference must stay because they can't have their cake and eat it too. You're not a citywide office, you're an area office, a district office. And your district knows what they want and you have to vote with your district. That's how it works. Plain and simple. Now, we're going to be wrapping it up quicker, but quickly I just wanted to bring up somebody that really loves the community. I mean, the guy is great. I mean, the John and John team have been cleaning our community forever and ever. I mean, they're like iconic, they're legends. I mean, I don't know what else to say. It's my pleasure to bring up John Morano. Thank you, John.
Thank you, George. Listen, I'm going to be very short. But for the people that know Jimmy Vaca, he's our friend, right? He worked very hard in the past for us. Reach out to Jimmy Vaca and also tell him that you don't want this to happen, all right? Because he works very closely with Marjorie Velasquez, our council person, all right? And she needs to understand how hard we worked in the past. And I want to just thank all the members here that have been speaking throughout the day and other times. They're working very hard for our community. So please support them, all right? And like I said at the church, stop shopping at Food Town. You have to stop shopping there, all right? And if you know your neighbor, volunteer to buy for them at Key Food or Fine Fair or whatever other locations. There's a lot of stores out there that need our support, small stores, so go there, all right? This gentleman makes a lot of money off us throughout the years. He should be closing this down as we speak, this idea, all right? So stop shopping there, all right? And tell the people, your neighbors that are shopping there, to stop there. And if they need help, help them shop, but don't let them go there, all right? Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you, John. We're going to be closing it out in a couple of minutes. You guys are like hardier than Jet fans. It's amazing. I mean, really, the display and the resolve and the resiliency you're showing tonight on, we'll say, less than stellar weather conditions is great. And I thank News 12 for taping this. Also, my good friend over here, there she is, Annie Bola. She's great. She's videoing for us, and, you know, give her a hand. She's great. Yay! Now, I'm going to give it to my good friend again, my valued friend, John Serini, to close this thing out. There you go. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
So I just want to make one last statement. Thank you to everyone who has actually made a donation. You know, we have to be able to fight the developers. We can't do it without hiring an attorney that can help us fight this on the legal field. The developers have their own legal team. They can, in a blink of an eye, call their attorney and start filing paperwork. We don't have that. We're all volunteers. So, you know, I feel horrible asking everybody to go into your pockets and donate what you can. But thank God for so many of our community members. We were able to raise $31,000 so far. Thank God. But we could say that sounds like a lot of money, but after interviewing attorneys said, well, this is going to be over $100,000 job to fight this for you. And this is not going to be the only challenge that we face in our community. We know that even if we're fortunate enough to beat this development, there's going to be another one popping up soon after. So we need to continue to fund, and we need to continue to be able to fight this. Yes, so if you go, I have lots of these today with me. So if you guys want to take one, put it in your window. The website, stopupzoning.com. You can go to that website. There's two things that you can do on this website. The first is, of course, click on the donation page. You're going to go to a GoFundMe page. You can make a donation. At the very end of the donation, it's going to ask you if you want to make a tip. You do not have to do the tip. That money goes directly to GoFundMe. The original donation will come to us. We are a 501c, so we'll be tax deductible on your tax returns. If you didn't know, the IRS changed the rules a couple of years ago that you can deduct $300 for a single person, $600 for a married couple, even without itemizing on your tax returns. So it's good for you to be able to make those donations. The second thing you can do on this website is you can sign a petition, which will go to all 51 council members. It will also go to the city planning. It goes to the mayor's office. It goes to Biaggi's office. Goes to Assemblyman Benedetto's office. Simultaneously, you put your name, you put your email, you put your address, and in a blink of an eye, it goes to everybody. So sign the petition if you haven't signed it, and if you've signed it, tell your neighbors to sign it. And if you have children in your house, anybody who lives with you, everybody should be signing this. Let's blast this to City Hall and tell them that this community does not want this. The more they get the petitions, the more they'll realize that we're serious about this. So please continue to spread the word. Before you leave, take a poster, take one for your neighbor, and let's get this word spread out. God bless everybody. Thank you for coming out in the cold.